In this video, I'm redesigning junk food to make it look healthy. Can I trick you into throwing out your meats and veggies and replacing them with some of the most popular unhealthy snacks out there? I'll let you be the judge. And first up, we have Funions, the onion flavored ring snack that's perfect for those times where your breath just doesn't stink badly enough. So the way I see it, these are basically for people who love onion rings but have sworn off eating vegetables. They just throw out the onion and give you the deep fried breading. As you can imagine, being loaded with fats and salt and having basically nothing of nutritional value, these rank pretty low on the good for you scale. But if we want to be a little dubious and help Funions break into the health food aisle, then I think it all starts with the color scheme. The regular Funions bag is obviously yellow with green accents, but by simply reversing that, by using green as the main color and then yellow accents later on, it'll make a pretty big difference. How about a little cardboard texture for some rustic and natural appeal? And instead of tempting the customer to eat a truckload of these things right off the bat, why don't we just go with a single ring? Because as a health-focused brand, we have to care about portion control. Now, I'd say a lot of modern brands, especially snack foods, don't rely on the traditional, upscale, classy kind of look to appear healthy. Many try to be more playful, approachable, even a little quirky to help fool people into thinking that healthy food can be fun and tasty too. Which if you've ever tried any keto cereal, you know is a lie. And with a name like Funion, which literally stands for fun onion, we've got to take this in a similar playful direction. Now, when I think about fun ways we could show off a deep fried onion ring, the main thing that comes to mind is where else do you put a ring besides on a hand? Now, admittedly, a real hand might be a little too creepy, but a soft, pillowy Michelin Man hand should work perfectly. I'm going with a really gritty texture brush for the outline, for that kind of handmade organic type feeling. And since onions are generally green and white, bringing a big swatch of white onto this green background should make the whole bag reminiscent of the vegetable it's based off of. I might actually remove this top line just to give the illustration more of an interesting style, and then mask out the onion ring so it looks like the finger is actually sticking through it. Some shadows should help tie these two things together, which is actually pretty important because the ring and the hand have very different styles. Plus, it'll add in some extra contrast because they're both pretty bright colors. This darn ring looks like it was photographed right next to the sun, so I'm going to darken it up a bit and then add in some extra lighting to make it feel more 3D and to match these other shadows that I just put in. Now for the logo, I'll get kind of a wobbly, hand-painted looking font wrapping around that big ring there, to help kind of frame it. The edges are a tad too dirty for my taste, so I'll just spiff them up a bit while still keeping a little bit of that jank in there. I also think I need to bring down the stem on this Y so it actually looks more like a Y. Now this logo needs to really stand out over any other text we put on the bag, and since our little hand down here is already 3D, why don't we follow suit and make the logo 3D as well? But to make it a bit more interesting, I'm going to change the rotation of the letters as we sweep across the word, and I think that'll just give it a more fun, energetic vibe. Now, since potential customers can't feel or taste these things in the store, I want to get some little descriptions on here to show off what the heck a Funion even is. And of course, they'll look a little plain on their own, so I'm going to give each word a little container based on that word's meaning. So for example, light here is going to be on a light colored, pill-shaped background. Crispy now is going to be on a bumpy shape, similar to the actual onion ring's texture, and that's just to help show that these things are still tasty and satisfying, even though they're presented as a health food. And then simply seasoned will have a dotted border, kind of like little bits of spice. And you'll notice here that just using the word simply automatically makes people think these are good for you, just because having fewer, simpler ingredients generally means your food isn't clogged up with extra fillers and junk. Now, of course, we will need an actual clearer description of the product on here, and because these do actually contain some garlic powder, I'm gonna go with onion and garlic as the flavor, because I think a purely onion flavored ring just reminds people too much of regular deep fried, unhealthy onion rings. And instead of using the word flavored like the original package, I'm gonna go with spiced, because that makes it sound less artificial and more artisanal. And I mean, it's still technically true because both onion powder and garlic powder are both spices. Now we've got this little empty space up here that could be filled with another health fact, but since there's no protein or vitamins or basically any other positive nutritional element that we could feature, let's focus on what it doesn't have, which are trans fats. It seems like a product could have 100 grams of total fats, but as long as none of them are trans, people just seem to be okay with it. And now I've gathered some simple hand-drawn illustrations of vegetables, because even though these Funions technically only have powdered vegetable spices, putting a big garlic clove on here or a nice plump onion will just make people think that those ingredients are a much bigger part of this product than they actually are, because in reality, it's almost entirely cornmeal. But even that, we can make it feel healthier by showing off a fresh ear of corn. And lastly, I just want to throw in a few halftones into some of these empty spaces, just to give this design a final touch of rustique and that authentic farm-grown texture that this brand is all about. And with that, we've gone from a neon yellow junk-fueled ring treat to what looks like an all-natural farm-fresh snack with simple veggie ingredients that'll keep the pounds off. Now, I've also noticed that the Funions website has a little bit to be desired. Honestly, they probably should have made their site with Framer, the sponsor of today's video. Framer is an amazing tool for designing, building, and launching websites. I used it to create my own personal site. It was a breeze to work with and bring something with animations and interactions and full responsiveness to life without any coding from me at all. So of course you can build your entire site from scratch like I did, but they've also got tons and tons of templates to choose from to help help get you started. Like this one here, that's a really nice, modern, simple design portfolio. Everything in this template is fully editable, so I can change that text to something a little more fitting, maybe even come down here and swap out this image with that brand new Healthy Funions design to show it off. But you can see the arrow down here isn't quite visible anymore, so I can just open that component, change the color to something darker, and maybe I'll even change the hover state here so that when I hover over the project, the arrow will turn green to match the Funion branding. And so we can come back here and do a live preview of that, see all the cool little animations, and scrolling down here to see the project, you can see when we hover over that, the arrow does the exact interaction I just set up. And of course, you have full control over the responsiveness of your site, so you can make it look however you want to on any type of screen size. And I'd say if you've ever used any app like Figma, you will feel right at home here. I mean, just like editing this component to adjust the layout of these items, or just add another social link to the footer that maybe links off to a YouTube channel. It's all just so easy. Framer is easily the best website builder I've ever used, and I highly recommend you check it out. So click that link down below and be sure to use my promo code to get 25% off your plan whenever you're ready to launch. Thanks to Framer for sponsoring this video. And up next, we are tackling Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Now, this is easily my favorite candy without question. I generally get the plant-based versions though, which taste exactly the same. They just don't have the artificial ingredients and preservatives the originals have. Either way you go, you can't really consider any form of Reese's healthy because of the mountains of sugar it has. But thankfully, right underneath that is our saving grace, 4 grams of protein, which means we can turn this thing right here into a protein bar. Well, I guess protein cups in this instance. Now, you might be thinking that 4 grams of protein isn't that much, and you'd be right, but I think I've got an idea for that later on. But first, let's just get a darker background on this to make it feel less vibrant and junk foody and more serious, with a big tagline underneath saying these aren't peanut butter cups, these are protein cups. And let's bring back that good old Reese's yellow from the original package to make this stand out. Why not just throw in a little bit of a tilt to get some movement and athleticism in here? Now, as we have learned, if a product has a lot of junk in it, just forget about all that and focus entirely on the good things, which in this case are the core Reese's ingredients of peanuts, chocolate, and of course, salt. Now, you might be thinking, peanuts are pretty healthy, but cocoa and salt are generally seen in more unhealthy foods, and you'd be right. But I think people are just so used to seeing ingredient lists being 10 miles long that they just assume anything that has few enough ingredients to count on one hand can't be too bad for you. Which is why you see the success of brands like our X Bar, which list out every ingredient used in it for maximum transparency. In our case though, we're using some trickery to make people think that these are the only ingredients by omitting everything else. Now, of course, all the ingredients legally have to be on the back on the nutrition panel, but if we drag in some nice, beautiful images of each of these items right up front, the amount of people that'll look at these and feel like they don't really need to look at the back will go way up. Which is why you can never trust a company that's trying to sell you something to have your best interest at heart. So make sure you watch out for these little tricks and always do your research first before you buy something to fuel your body. To kind of help break up this really text-heavy area, I'm thinking adding a border around the logo might help. Just gotta get that tilted to match the letters, and I want to try expanding that all the way to the top of the bar just to give it some more visual weight and draw people into the logo. Now for a little detailed text, let's say this has simple ingredients, that it's bite-sized fuel, and they do actually happen to be gluten-free for whatever that's worth. Those could be the standard Reese's orange, and a couple slanted dividers will help break up the information. Now the original package shows 2 Reese cups kind of sitting on their sides so you can see that nice peanut butter in there, but I want to go with a single Reese cup instead from a top-down view. I grabbed a bite mark off a separate Reese's cup just so I'd have extra control on how big it is. We'll just need to cut off this end to merge those two together, fix up the lighting so those pieces match, and then how about a nifty little transition that I can kind of center right there on that bite mark. That'll let me bring back a big area of that recognizable Reese's orange. In case you've forgotten, this is a protein product after all, and I have saved the perfect place to put this information right on top of the Reese cup, which I'm kind of proud of that idea because not only does the Reese cup actually look like a little badge for it to sit on, but because also we're visually tying these 4 grams of protein to this one Reese cup. And so now people are going to assume that one cup has 4 grams of protein, and so both cups in the package would have a total of 8 grams, which is much better for a protein snack. But of course that isn't actually true because each cup only has 2 grams. So using some marketing trickery and barely legal tactics, we've transformed one of the world's most beloved candy treats into a health snack that gym bros everywhere would be running to grab. And then we've got Cheez-Its, the cheesy baked snack with a hole punched out of the center to save an extra 1.5% on production costs. Now the crazy thing is that these aren't really even that bad for you. Sure, they've got some fats and sodium and all that, but that's for a serving size of 27 crackers, which is quite a lot. But this package with its bright red and yellow color scheme just straight up makes you think you're at McDonald's. So the clear first step is to give this more of a toned down background, something like a nice, smooth, natural tan. And frankly, I think having a giant cracker on here, just like the original, is perfectly fine. I do want to straighten it out a bit though, just so it feels more structured and less fun and energetic like the original. Oh, and what's this? Apparently Cheez-Its are made with 100% real cheese. Well, that's certainly something we should bring attention to on the new design, so why not do that with a big, beautiful block of cheddar, just kind of nestled up right there against the cracker. Of course, we're gonna need something to balance that out here on the other side, but really the only other major ingredient in these things is flour. But my friends, we are in luck because flour comes from wheat, which is probably one of the most common icons for health food in general. Now, of course, all that's gonna need some soft lighting to make it feel like a professionally shot photograph. We're talking some crispy shadows in here to help ground these things to the floor, making sure everything looks as realistic as possible. Though it does seem like this little guy could be dimmed down a bit so he doesn't blend in so much with the cracker behind it. Now I'm thinking like a rustic classic style, maybe for the overall vibe of this. Like these typewriter letters explaining that Cheez-Its have been around since 1921, which definitely gives credence to this vintage look and reminds us of a time where food was much more simple and way less processed. Now there's several more bits of info I'd like to disclose about this product, so I'm gonna whip me up a little grid here to help section off each piece of text, bringing back that red accent as an homage to the original brand. To kick things off, we'll say there's no artificial flavors or colors in here. The central square will proclaim this is 100% real cheese, and I'll just throw in that there's 0 cholesterol because why not? And the net weight can go over on this other side because it has to go somewhere. Rustic products definitely did like their grid shapes, so maybe I'll just extend this out to encompass everything in one big cell. But to break up that rectangular monotony, how about a big red box right here in the center that can showcase that these bad boys are baked, not fried. And we might even give that a bit of a tilt for some extra pizzazz. Heck, it might even be cool to just take that and make a little pattern across the top with it. Just a little something for some extra visual texture. And that leaves us with the perfect spot to put the logo right up next to the baked box, so it clearly reads Baked Cheez-It. Now, of course, we've got this little spot here, which probably needs something. And you know, stepping back to some of these fonts and colors, and especially these little pinstripes, just kind of remind me of an old-timey carnival. And in those days, cute little cartoon illustrations were all the rage. So let's have a spiffy-looking gentleman here holding on to a Cheez-It, raising it up to his mouth to take a quick bite, all while he's nonchalantly lazing about on our central big beautiful cracker. Last thing I want to do is go around the whole thing and add a little bit of wear and tear, just so it looks like the graphics were printed with like an old-timey printer that happened to let the ink bleed a little bit, and maybe it didn't always fill in the solid colors perfectly. I'll make this especially visible on this outline right here, just to kind of break up the symmetry of all these squares, and to make this grid layout feel a little bit more open. And so with that, we've turned a modern cheesy snack food into a handmade artisan staple that feels like it's been around for 100 years. Well, mainly because it has. Well, if you liked this video, I've got another one right here that you might just like even more, so you better watch it and find out.